Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about the Bose QC Ultra over-ear noise-canceling headphones that come in at $430. So this is their flagship ANC headphone, and I've evaluated a number of their other headphones and had mixed results. This one, on the other hand, I feel is genuinely good, and I'm going to talk about that in this video. So let's get going. Now, as usual, all these videos are made possible by Headphones.com. Unfortunately, this is not something that Headphones.com carries, at least not as of the time of recording this. So we just had to buy it, but we still want to cover it, right? So there are certain things that we just have to buy. This is one of them. I made a video about how all that stuff works if you guys are curious. But as usual, all of this is made possible by Headphones.com. So remember to check out Headphones.com for your next audio purchase. So let's get going with the review here. And as mentioned, this is one of my favorite noise canceling headphones. It's not perfect. It has some issues, but they are much less than on some of the previous ones that I have evaluated, and there are some very good things here as well. So I'm going to go over my thoughts here overall. I'll leave timestamps in the description, but I'm going to start with the sound quality and how it sounds to me. Then we'll go into the data, and then we'll talk about some of the other things to do with this headphone, because there's a lot going on here, and it's just interesting. And it kind of makes me reconsider what I think of as good when it comes to these types of products, because I actually had an occasion to go outside. Imagine that. No, I had an occasion to use this on a trip recently, and I want to kind of give you guys my experience of what that was like using this. So let's begin with the sound quality here. And subjectively, when I first put this on, it was just massive, thunderous, overbearing, muddy, bloated, bad quality bass, just way too much. However, they have a function in the app that allows you to basically curb the bass in the right spot, and that's actually rare for these types of devices. Usually the app is like an afterthought. There's EQ availability in it, but it doesn't really fix the things that you would want to fix with the headphone sound, and with this one it does. So shout outs to Bose for being smart about where the bass shelf function is in their app. And if you reduce it by a certain amount, in my case I reduced it by like 3 or 4 dB, it turned the bass quality from this kind of overbearing, bloated, and muddy kind of bass that I think maybe this kind of thing is known for, to really solid, clean, palatable, punchy kind of bass that was way nicer, way more enjoyable to listen to, and it didn't crowd out the mid-range and the treble and the rest of the response. But just subjectively, this is one where once I did that, I was able to kind of hear all the clarity come through from the mid-range and the treble. It's not perfect in this throughout the response here. There are some features that sort of stick out. I do hear a little bit of sort of clang and glare coming through in the lower treble. And also, there's something around like 2 kilohertz for me that comes forward a bit occasionally. But again, this is going to depend a little bit on the recordings that you're listening to. So at least in my case, sometimes it would be totally innocuous and fine. Other times I would notice it more strongly and find myself kind of going, maybe that's not quite right there. But, for its wideband overall kind of like general sound signature, this is like almost exactly what I want. It's got a little bit of extra bass, again, once that is pulled back a bit into the realm of sanity. It's got maybe a little bit of extra treble, but it has mids. And if you are an audiophile like me, you care a lot about the mid-range. At least I care a lot about the mid-range. So for me, it's all those textural qualities that you get with, instrumental music, piano tones, acoustic guitar tones, flamenco guitar tones, vocals, those sort of textural qualities. When there's a good mid-range presentation, it comes forward a little bit and you're able to hear that better and more distinctly. And it does that with the Bose QC Ultra. Now, my key criticism of the other Bose products that I've evaluated, for the over-ear headphones at least, is that the channel balance has not been great on the other Bose products that I've evaluated, both subjectively and objectively, like measured as well. And with this one, I don't really get that issue. So either I'm more lucky with this one, or they just have tighter tolerances, maybe because this is a more expensive product. Again, it's not perfect here. It has some issues with channel balance still, but it's not nearly as egregious as what I found with some of the other models. But with that out of the way, let's get into the data here and talk about this, because there is a lot to talk about when it comes to the data here. But I'm also going to show you guys another test here using music-like noise stimulus. And the reason why we want to do that with these types of devices is they have what's called dynamic equalization, or volume level dependent equalization. And that means that depending on how loud you listen, things in the response can actually change. In particular, bass and treble level are often different. And you see this with the Apple products, and it's definitely here with this as well. So a single line isn't necessarily indicative of its performance. I mean, it isn't for other reasons as well, but we don't need to get into that in this video. So here you can see the default sound signature, massive amounts of bass. Of course, you can tone that down. And when you do downshelf it, it downshelves at around like 200 to 300 hertz, which is great because that's kind of where you would want it to be downshelved. Then the ear gain is present. You see it's a bit uneven there. There's a forward feature at around 2 kilohertz, and then again in the lower treble around 4 kilohertz. That's perceptually relevant. I do hear that. So this kind of uneven response you get here throughout the ear gain. So, you know, where you see the rise up to 3 kilohertz on the raw plot, we call that the ear gain because that's where the ear amplifies frequencies the most strongly. It's a bit uneven in that section, and that's where I think the strongest criticism is for me, particularly with that kind of lower treble forwardness or glare feature. In my opinion, the smoothness, it can still be better. But this overall, you know, for its wideband, like I said, it's actually quite good. This is almost exactly the kind of relative balance you would want to see for bass, mids, and treble, just that the bass is too much. If you like tons of bass, you would keep it, but I toned that down a bit to make it a little bit more sensible, in my opinion. But that's also with the default kind of tests that we do with these headphones. Now I'm going to show you guys a music-like noise-based stimulus, or testing with that stimulus, which is actually from the Audio Engineering Society as well. And this is because of its dynamic equalization to give you guys maybe an additional sense. I'm not ready to say like one is more representative than the other because, again, not all music is the same. You have different types of recordings, and so you know the relative volume levels are going to be different as well. But for the M noise test, here is the result. And you can see that in this instance, the bass is quite a bit higher. There's a couple of other differences throughout. Keep in mind, these are also averages of 20 plus seatings each. But the big thing I want to draw your attention to is the bass being more substantial here with the M noise test. And basically, this is indicating that with a music-like stimulus, it may actually have more bass determined by the dynamic equalization. So how things change with a music stimulus based on the volume and the crest factor of that music. You can see there is more bass here. And so you might be asking, like, what does that tangibly mean? I think we're so used to headphone performance being indicated by a line on a graph. There are so many reasons why that's not good enough. This is also one of them. This is not the key reason, though not the primary reason why that's not good enough. And we have actually started rolling out those additional visualizations. In this instance, the issue is that depending on what you're listening to and the crest factor of the music, you could actually be hearing more or less bass, for example, and maybe a couple of other differences throughout. And so having both of those data points is valuable to consider. Now, that is, of course, with ANC on. That's the way that this is going to be used most of the time. I think folks often wonder, like, can I get better sound quality by turning the ANC off? With this product, you don't have a traditional kind of ANC off mode, but you can create custom modes that allow you to dial in the amount of noise canceling, and it's kind of like a slider all the way to, you know, full ANC. So you can kind of dial that in. In my testing, I don't notice any meaningful difference to the sound moving away from its strongest noise canceling. Oh, and by the way, you also get a wind cut filter if you want that. And I know that this is actually, the absence of this feature is a reason why people want an ANC off function or off mode. Again, you can kind of do that with this with the custom mode, but you also have a wind filter option there as well, so you can just turn that on. Now, speaking of noise canceling, that's something that the QC Ultra does exceptionally well. I find it to be very, very good, and I've actually finally got my setup here so that I can do ANC testing. Look forward to more of that. Consider subscribing if you want to see more ANC headphones tested. I've got a bunch here that I need to run through, and then I'm going to do an ANC tier list, so make sure you're subscribed for that. But yeah, essentially the ANC performance here is good across the board. In this instance, there's quite a bit of attenuation across the board. So what you're seeing here is the delta from like the full on blast of the signal to having the headphones on with active noise canceling on full. And you can see here, depending on the angle of the sound source, you're getting up to, you know, 30 to 40 dB of attenuation, which is very, very good. And I've done some of these tests in the past, but I wouldn't compare this data with that stuff because I've sort of redone everything here. So this may serve as a baseline for future ANC products. But in short, the Bose QC Ultra performs very well for its noise canceling. And as a noise canceling device first, this is one of my favorites overall because it is also very comfortable. Now, when I took this on my trip, I was on several planes for several hours each time, and plane noise, screaming children, it's always an awful time. I hate flying, it's the worst. These headphones made it more than tolerable. Because of how good the ANC was, it made me not have that sort of like flight anxiety that I usually do. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about with the noise canceling here is the question of whether or not you actually need noise canceling headphones. Because the truth is that yes, you can get better sounding products for less money that don't have noise canceling. And if you care the most about sound quality, you probably wouldn't be looking at one of these. But that question of like, how important is the noise canceling? It's something that's been on my mind because I think in the past I would have said like, yeah, no, just use your IEMs on the plane, your in-ear headphones, block out the sound that way. And it's true, that does attenuate a lot of the sound. It doesn't do nearly the kind of job that this does. And when it comes to increasing the signal to noise ratio for the content, whether you're watching movies or listening to music or whatever, I'm finding it to be more valuable than I think I would have appreciated it for in the past. So even though I might be able to get better sound quality from like a 64 Audio U6T or some of my other favorite IEMs, maybe like the Dusk, I've been using that recently on flights as well. The benefit of essentially not getting the distractions from being on an airplane, being in a very loud metal tube hurling through the sky with screaming children everywhere, smushed together with other people like you're in a can of sardines, this definitely helped. And you also get a very convenient travel case. And check this out. It has a little visual indicator for how the headphones are supposed to fold up and get stored, making it genuinely easy to travel with. So I just wanted to highlight that. Its ANC is exceptional. Its comfort is also incredibly good. This is one of the most comfortable headphones. And because of its ANC quality and its comfort quality, it really has elevated this product for me quite a bit, if you think about the package as a whole. But speaking of which, there are also some other features. So this also has the immersive audio feature, immersive audio as a mode. One of the modes here, one of the options here is snapshotting the sound as if it's like right in front of you. So wherever you look, you push that mode, it snapshots it as if it's speakers coming from that direction. And this is one of the best implementations of that, head tracking, immersive audio type of thing that I've come across yet. That snapshotting function is like immediate and it's dead on. And it takes the sound from being a thing that is in the sound helmet that is in your head and puts it there, which is great. Or there, right? I'm pointing at my speakers, which are there, but yeah, like there. The second option is one that follows you. So it's kind of like you can turn like this and then it'll kind of catch up to you. Or turn this way and it'll kind of catch up to you, right? It takes the sound from inside your head and like super laterally defined to being kind of like in front of you with the snapshot. And if you want that kind of like immersiveness without having to constantly think about like, I'm always looking in this direction, having that follow mode makes sense to me. Is this a better overall experience than high quality passive headphones that don't have head tracking or immersive audio of any kind? That's still in my mind a bit of an open question. This really is the next major frontier that all of these companies that are producing products like these are trying to be the leader in, and so I can see Bose wanting to do that as well. They've done a good job here of that head tracking, snapshotting thing. Now, in the app, you do get a bunch of options here. It's not that flexible, but they do have some of the important options for me. So I'm going to highlight those. Number one being that EQ that I mentioned, where the EQ is in the right spot. That counts for me so much. And the other is that you can very easily have this be paired with multiple devices at the same time. This is something that many, high-end products seem to fail to do correctly, and they've done a good job here. Of course, it also has some of the touch functions, like you can turn the volume up or down by stroking the side of the headphone. Let's be real, that's what's going on. There's kind of like a ribbed section, and you have to stroke the rib in order for the volume to go up or down. But as far as the rest of the build and the design is concerned, this is really good. It's lightweight, but it feels sturdy. It feels premium. This is kind of like this metal material for the yoke. The cup is not, but it feels of high quality materials. It's comfortable leather on top. And as mentioned, it's one of the more comfortable headphones I've ever had the pleasure of wearing for a long flight. And I strongly feel this lives up to the name of QuietComfort. That's what they were going for here with this, and I think they nailed it. Now, the question is, how does this stack up to the competition? And as some of you guys may know, I am on a forever quest to find actually good ANC products, because a lot of them that come out are just bad. This one is good. So let's go through some comparisons. So compared to the AirPods Max, I would take the Bose QC Ultra every day. The AirPods Max has better quality bass, worse mids, and similarly okay treble. The AirPods Max is a lot heavier, a lot less comfortable, and I find the ANC performance here is more consistent. So I prefer this product over the AirPods Max. Compared to the Sony WH-1000 XM5, which as Cameron likes to call just the end of a Windows license key, I still prefer the Bose QC Ultra. I think the XM5 was an improvement over the XM4 for its sound quality, and it does have many features and it has good noise canceling quality. It's also comfortable, but I think the sound quality on the QC Ultra is just better. Sony tends to do this thing where they have this really uneven mid-range presentation and they tend to go for more V-shape. This one is, apart from its crazy bass by default, is actually a lot more balanced generally, even though there's definitely some unevenness throughout the response. Compared to the Bowers & Wilkins PX8, they both have massive overbearing bass. There was, I believe, a firmware update to the PX8. That's actually next on my radar to cover as well. The PX8 is a lot better now than it was before. I still think that I prefer the QC Ultra. Both of them I would need to reduce the bass, but I find the comfort also to be considerably better on the QC Ultra for big heads, right? Compared to the Sennheiser Momentum 4, that's another one that's also in this range of competent, reasonable, sensible, noise-canceling wireless products that are well suited to their purpose, to their function, being both good at noise canceling or decent at noise canceling, not as good as this one, but also comfortable and has a generally palatable sound signature. The Momentum 4 sound signature is also a little bit more V-shaped in the sense that it has a bit of a dip around that 1.5K, 2K region, but also like tons of bass. And I do think that the treble is a little bit smoother on the Momentum 4. So I think that's a good one to consider in contrast to this. So in conclusion, the Bose QC Ultra is a product that I'm going to recommend. I had a fantastic time using this headphone. It's one that I would want to use again for, traveling, for that kind of stuff. It's not the best for sound quality, I think. And I think you are giving up certain things when you start to go into, the ANC headphones. It's not as good as what you could get with passive headphones or in-ear headphones. But if you consider the total package here, everything you get from the quality of the build to the comfort to the noise canceling, the sound quality is decent, right? It's not perfect. It's not amazing. It has its issues. Everything does. But for the total package here, this gets a very strong recommendation from me for a noise canceling headphone. Okay, as usual, guys, if you're looking for more of the data, that will be linked in the description below. And that's also where you can find a link to our Discord, where you can connect with me or other like-minded Wiggly Air people, and you can tell us that we're wrong and all that fun stuff. Until next time, thanks for watching.